Hi, my name is Tanya Groves, and I'll facilitate this Prezi lecture about effectively facilitating online discussions. The online environment has been called the great equalizer because issues that typically separate us in the physical environment, our clothes, the way we talk and move, etc., are negated in the online one. It's interesting to note that there have been quite a few studies that suggest that introverts prefer and are more successful in the online environment, and extroverts are sometimes frustrated by the constraints of it. Online discussions offer students the opportunity to reflect more deeply upon what they want to say and how they want to respond, and this ability to pause and think often makes for discussions that go deeper than would a face-to-face one. If you want your discussions to be successful, lay out the expectation for the utilization of them right from the get-go and design good questions. You will want to avoid yes-no questions and use questions that encourage deep reflection. Don't ask questions for which you expect only one right answer. Instead, ask questions that require them to reflect and reach, whether that's reaching out to research or reaching out to the text. These questions attempt to construct knowledge from personal experience and prior learning, and they subsume concept formation, creative problem solving, and incorporate collaboration. Hypothetical questions such as, you're a farm woman living in the early 1900s, just like the women we've been reading about. What would your day include? Or evaluative questions like, which is a better solution, the first one given or the second, and why, can be effective. Good questions can be controversial, they could involve a case study, they could tie into whatever topic you're learning about, or they could synthesize elements already learned. Also, you want to avoid questions that require a yes or no answer or that ask for a specific fact. You want questions that ask students to make comparisons, make predictions, suggest causes, and substantiate their opinions with text. Consider asking students to complete the sentence sometimes. What most struck me about the text we just read was... Number 3, you want to set up expectations for the proper usage of discussion forums right away. There will be some sample rubrics on the course site for you to look through, but posting standards for discussion, including netiquette, which is just etiquette rules for online communication, will help. For instance, flaming is posting in all caps, and that's like yelling at someone. You want your students to avoid such behavior. Paloff and Pratt suggest setting up participation guidelines at the outset for discussion forums. They say that a post involves more than visiting the course site to check in and say hello. A post is considered to be a substantive contribution to the discussion wherein a student either comments on other posts or begins a new topic. Interestingly, in a study conducted by Wilson, Pollock, and Hammond, they found that the students who more actively engaged in online discussions achieved a higher grade than those who were less engaged. But they also found that reading the postings of other students and the instructor was most clearly linked to improved grades, and this was particularly true for those students whose GPA was low. In this group, the students that read more postings did substantially better than those students who read fewer postings. This study demonstrated that online classrooms do provide opportunities to stimulate active learning and significant student-to-student learning. Also, as the instructor, be a model of good participation by logging on frequently and contributing to the discussion. This will help you to be informed as to what your students understand or don't, and it will let the students know that you're there and watching them. Additionally, it will help you model good forum participation for them in order to set your standards high. However, you don't want to dominate or over-participate, because you may squelch the students' participation and then they might rely on you for a response instead of each other. Your job will be to follow the discussion and gently guide and redirect it by asking clarifying and expansive questions. I let the students know early on that I won't respond to every post, but I'll certainly be reading every post. A couple years ago, I taught my online lit course, and a student posted that no piece of literature except the Bible held any value. I waited for another student to politely challenge the student's post, and when no one did, it was early in the course, I did. After I did, then several students chimed in politely, and the student responded in a very thoughtful manner. Consider breaking large groups down into smaller ones for in-depth discussion purposes. I like 4 or 5 in a group for effective discussions and for that synergy. Some discussions may merit whole class participation, but I generally utilize smaller groups. Also, ask students to become discussion leaders. An interesting option to try later in the semester is that instead of your asking questions from the readings, students develop them. To assist them in asking pertinent questions, you can tell them to imagine that the author of the piece they are reading is going to visit the class and ask them questions they would like answered. A recent study conducted found that those students who facilitated the discussions didn't like it. They thought it was hard work. However, those very same students who acted as facilitators actually earned higher grades than those who didn't fulfill the facilitator role. Having to look through everyone's posts, correct posts that are wildly off base, respond, etc., encourages deeper learning. Don't overdo it, however. You only want to ask one question at a time and avoid the death by discussion scenario by only using one to two discussion forums a week. Any more than that kind of becomes cognitive overload. I like to keep it to only one discussion forum a week if possible, and it isn't always possible. Also consider using the question and answer or Q&A forum format, which only allows a student the opportunity to see everyone else's posts once he or she has posted his or her response first. And in summary, be present enough on the forums that they know that you will be reading their postings. It's okay to ask follow-up questions, commend them for their thoughtful postings, or to intervene if students are being impolite or are off base. Then rate or award points to these discussions and also rate responses to the initial postings. According to Wilson, Pollack, and Hammond, instructors can enhance the potential of substantial peer-to-peer interaction on discussion boards by building an online discussion component into their classes, by rewarding students for posting direct responses with points, and by requiring that at least a portion of the postings should be in response to other students' postings, thus providing incentives for students, not just to post, but also to read and to think thoughtfully about others' postings. The rubrics on our course site will give you some examples, but you might also consider using a rubric creator like Rubistar, which is linked to the course site. And finally, try to get into a rhythm of reading, rating, and responding quickly, whether it be a 48 or 72-day hour turnaround, having a consistent and fairly quick turnaround rate will keep them motivated and feeling attended to. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you online.